don't get mad at penguins because they can't fly. And that's really a lesson in acceptance, and that we should accept people, limitations and all. And here's the hard part: not expect them to do things that they're not capable of. And the thing that makes that such a challenge is that oftentimes it's just hard to see people's limitations. So take the penguin, for example. Like, what do you mean a penguin can't fly? It's a bird. It's got wings, got feathers, and birds with wings and feathers can fly. Except that penguins cannot. I mean, flight is literally beyond their ability, and we can get mad at them for that, or we can just accept it.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Erin here with another interview. And I was just reflecting on this interview with Gabe Karp, which I'll tee up in a second. But I was remembering sort of the weeks after I was first named to interim CEO and sort of my big girl job, my corporate CEO position. And I remember, well, of course I remember, it was the biggest thing going on. We had one of our largest partners, and actually our largest revenue partner, was not happy with us. And we were really pooping the bed. But here's the other side of the story. We also knew we were losing money on this client. So we were pissed too. We were trying to solve their issues. We had no money to throw at it because we cost accounted it, and we were actually losing $17 million on the deal. And our bottom line was $17 million. It was crazy. And I'll never forget the first meeting, because I didn't have a relationship with these guys. And we drove down to Stamford, Connecticut. And, of course, it was me and a bunch of dudes, and my head of sales with me. And I was so freaking nervous. I did so many big things in my career, but God, I just hated those situations of conflict. And I had a reason to be nervous because it actually didn't go very well. And it goes back to negotiations and some things I've learned. We've talked about it in prior episodes. And so I was really excited to talk to Gabe today, because I think it's something I've gotten better at, but still not perfect. Like, I just don't. I love to live in a world of apple pie and roses. And I'm lucky in the world I'm in now. Most of my conflict is actually personal, not because I have a shit show personal, but I don't have as much on the business side because I'm not running a company that's managing $2 billion in assets. And there's just not as much, I don't know, challenges in that way. But having Gabe on was this is such an important discussion. We've done other episodes about tough discussions with bosses and things, but this was so Gabe is a conflict expert. So Gabe Karp, he's a formal trial attorney. He spent 10 years in, sort of that world, that succession-ish world, which obviously has a lot of conflict, and he learned a lot from that. But he's now an entrepreneur, he's an author, he's a speaker, and so many words of wisdom in this conversation. So here are just some of the things. One, we're going to talk about penguins and why you shouldn't be mad at penguins, which is a theme in his book and his TEDx talk, and such a great mindset. We also talk about this phenomenon that he described where there's always two coins on the table. Holy crap. I kind of knew this intuitively, but once you put that tangible metaphor around it, you will understand one of the keys to handling conflict. And in particular, when you've really messed up on something. We'll also talk about, there's 5 different traps he talks about that turn conflict against you or businesses, and then how to detox from at least a couple of them. We also talk about his least proud leadership moment and what he learned from it. And Gabe was very vulnerable in this conversation. And, even though he's a conflict guy and he loves conflict, he's also a real human and hasn't done everything right in his life, which we love to hear, right? Because we're all about authenticity. We also talk about this thing he calls your shopping list voice, which is so brilliant, and why you need to break this out when things take a wrong turn. And then we also talk about the thing that you might be doing that's depriving someone from being the best person they should be. Like, if that doesn't hit, I don't know what is. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Gabe Karp.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today. I think we can never have too many episodes about tough conversations. Conflict is sort of the word you use. Our audience is working in, Game of Thrones type environment, i.e. corporate America. So I want to start with you are a conflict expert. So was there a moment that you sort of realized you sort of wanted to be this conflict expert?
There was actually. I was 10 years as a litigator and just in court. And so commercial litigation, like business to work, but also legal malpractice. So suing other lawyers for screwing up. And if you think of a normal lawsuit as contentious, this was that on steroids. Like, imagine cross-examining someone who cross-examines people for a living and who just freaking hates you. When I would be sitting in a deposition and I'd be thinking to myself, okay, this guy's like 4.5 feet away from me on the other side of the table. If he jumps out of that chair right now and tries to kill me, like I can grab this pencil and I could, like, it was that contentious. And you learn about like anger and just how it flows through a room. And for all the wrong reasons, I loved it. Like, just, I couldn't have been happier. But then fast forward, I left the private practice law, which was a small startup, and we were growing fast. And I was very comfortable with conflict. And every time there were issues, we screwed something up for a client, somebody screwed something up internally or whatever it was, I was just always trying to like, let's get into it and fix this. And everybody around me was really uncomfortable with it. And I didn't realize that at first. And me not realizing that they were uncomfortable with conflict meant that I was actually making it worse. And I thought, okay, we can't fix the stuff we got to fix if we've got to like tiptoe around issues and cater to these emotional needs. Like, I need to get people as comfortable as I am with conflict so that we can get to like real business of doing great work and going fast. So I thought, you know what? I have to very consciously come up with ways to make people feel comfortable. And it started with just getting into different conversations and getting them comfortable with it. And like little intro, somebody screwed up, saying to them, and I was about to tell them how they screwed up. I would just open with saying, look, I would hope that somebody would come tell me this if I were in your position. So it was way back when I realized I need to make them feel comfortable with it. And I was good at doing it. So I liked it. So I just started doing more.
Do you, the classic question, nature versus nurture? I think a lot of people listening go, yeah, but we were born with it, especially women listening. We tend to be more sensitive. Have you seen people transform? Do you have a story of somebody who thought, oh God, it's just in my nature to run from conflict, and you sort of transform them?
Yeah. In fact, there's not a plan. I just got to thank you, Karp, from women that I work with. I don't do much consulting, but I'm doing a little bit of consulting. This is a large company. This is a company of a few thousand people, and she's a superstar executive. And I've been sort of mentoring her, a formal program they've set up, but she basically sends me this card that says, like, it's been amazing, the transformation of me being able to have conversations that I never could have had before. And it's kind of what you said. People are just like uncomfortable with conflict, particularly, and I've learned this about women. I didn't understand, but now I have 3 daughters and I'm like keyed into lots of stuff I had no idea. But there's definitely a socialization. Like, the little girls are just socialized to be more proper than boys. But like little boys are really encouraged in sports, like, like coach is saying, get mad, get tough, get in there, mix it up. And it's just that messaging over and over again creates neural pathways in our brains where like we boys can associate conflict with something as positive, or being, more importantly, like being aggressive and being assertive as a positive thing. Whereas girls are taught from a young age, no, that's not quite proper. Like that's not acceptable. That's bullshit. So what I have found that in working with lots of people, it's nurture. It's not nature. We all have the same nature. We all have that survival fight or flight instinct. That's in us. We can't change that. But the ability to arrest that like instinctive process in the moment is something you learn. And the thing that I found is most effective for individuals that I worked with is they tell me about a situation. They tell me it's difficult. They're expecting it to happen again. And they want to know how to, like, they need to approach a difficult topic. And in talking it through, I just throw out as many one-liners as I can to sort of open it up. And then they latched onto one, like, okay, I can see myself saying that. So for them, what I said before, if I were in your position, I'd want someone to tell me this. Like, that's an easy thing to do. And I've never heard someone say, well, no, that's not going to work. Because it does. It works 100% of the time. So once people kind of get that one thing they need to sort of break that dam, then all the stuff that they have inside them that they want to communicate can come out in a productive, respectful way. I mean, the key is respect.
So what you're saying is one of the most important things is sort of that entry point into the conversation. Is that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I really think of the one-liner here. It's that everybody has a sense of what they think needs to happen, and they have an idea like how to, like, if they can get to that point where things get better, they know what that looks like. They don't know how to begin. They just don't know how to start. I should just tell this person they have a bad attitude. You know, they'll tell me they have a good attitude. I just don't understand them. And look at man. The idea is you need that one thing that can just get you on the field in the arena to just start doing your thing.
I brought a couple scenarios, so we're going to pick your brain on this.
All
right. So the first scenario is their boss. They're pissing them off, but let's say the main thing is they're constantly changing priorities on them. Sort of they're like swooping in, swooping out. They're totally overwhelmed because one week it's one priority, one week it's another. Their bosses are very scattered, and they haven't said anything about it. They've just sort of sucked it up. What are a couple options of those one-liners or frames to have that conversation to turn that around?
Yeah. So hopefully there's at least a relationship with the boss where you can have this honest conversation, genuine conversation. So if there's not, there are things you can do to start that.
And I would say, let me get a little more specific just to have some fast talk about. So someone that just boss keeps shifting priorities. So people feel whipsawed. Like they drop everything, go run to do this thing. And then while they're doing it, they're told drop everything, go run and do that. So I would bring awareness to the boss. It's almost like you're holding a mirror up to the boss and letting them know what they look like. So in the moment when you're now doing the thing that you dropped something else to do, and you're being told drop that and go do something else, you rear up and say, look, sounds like that's important, but you told me it was like the same level of urgency that the thing I'm doing right now is important, and I'm not done doing it. And if I drop this and leave it, it's going to remain undone. It's not going to work. And if you send me to go do this next thing, and then 2 days from now, you do the exact same thing that you're doing to me on that one, that's going to be difficult for me. And when I say difficult, I'll be honest, maybe annoying is a better word, because I don't know what's important to you. And if your answer is, hey, whatever's important to me is whatever's 5 feet in front of my face, well, then I guess tell me that so I can recalibrate to know that working here is just going to be running from fighting one fire to another. And I got to leave a fire before it's done, before I have to leave, put it out, to go do another one.
Because if I can expect that that's the chaos that this is going to be, then okay, I can frame that. Now, let me take a step back and like analyze what I just said. What you're telling the guy is, you suck. But all you are, you're just a hot mess of like, you create fire after fire after fire after fire. And that's what this looks like to me. And most people who have even just the tiniest bit of like interest in getting better won't want to be viewed that way. No one wants to be viewed as hot mess who's just running from fire to fire to fire. So saying that will trigger a defense mechanism within them. And they may try to defend and say, no, this isn't fire to fire to fire. This is something else. And if they take that approach, then you can say, okay, I'll just tell you, when you asked me to like 2 days ago, you asked me to drop everything that I was working on that was important, and I ran to go do this, that looks like a fire. And then just now when you told me to drop this and go work on that, that looks like a fire. So if you're telling me they're not fires, maybe I'm just using the wrong word, but these are like urgent things. And it makes it hard to plan and like allocate my time and my resources to get the work done.
So you're sort of like letting the person know. So this looks really bad. And if it's going to continue forever, like I need to know that.
Yeah. I think one of the most important things you said too, that most people don't do, is you said it right at the beginning, in that moment when that hits. I think a lot of people will say, oh, okay, at our next one-on-one, or, the next time I have some time with them, right? And, the one-on-one gets delayed, right? And then by the time they get to it, they're nervous and they're in a different mood. So I think that is really important. And in this virtual working world is harder because you can't just walk in. A lot of times at the office, you might actually have to pick up a cell phone and call because, obviously doing it over email. So I think that's really important. I'm going to give you one more, and then I'm going to and then the interview will get a lot more fun because I'm making you work right from the beginning. Let's do one more. Customer. So I spent a lot of time running a company, and so I always got to be in the conflict of the customer. And one of those common scenarios was having to go to them at a quarterly business review and tell them, the things that we promised are not going to be delivered, right? Like whatever it is, the IT solution's not going in on time, or, sales guy promised something they shouldn't. How best to sort of tee up those difficult conversations in a customer meeting? Do you have any suggestions there?
I do. So true story. I'm at dinner with my family in a restaurant, almost done with the meal, and I bite down on something hard and brittle, and I feel it like crunch, like in the bones of my face, and it was glass. I actually chewed glass. Luckily I didn't get hurt. So I called the waiter over and I said, hey, the food tastes great, but do you get some without glass in it? Just because I'm like a smart ass. But he, and because I took that approach, he was confused. Like he just sat there just looking at me. And I look up and I said, there's glass in my food. And I had my flashlight, on my phone, like doing glass. And he says, I guess you don't want this anymore. And he just took my plate and walked away. And I thought, you know what? Maybe he's just not a good communicator. But when the bill comes, there'll be a make good. They'll discount my meal or gift, whatever. And sure enough, the bill comes and there's no make good. They did not charge extra for the glass. But other than that, there was no make good. And my mom was with us. But I'm her youngest. I'm a baby of 4. So I'm still her baby. And she went ballistic. I mean, when she was like, you gave my son, my dear precious son, glass in his food, he could have died. And she just went on and on. You thought it was the end of the world. There's a guy named Jean-Louis Gassier. He was the head of Apple France in like the 80s and 90s. And he said, this is what is called the choice between 2 tokens. And that in every customer service complaint, there are 2 tokens on the table. There's the, it's not a big deal token. And there's the, it's the end of the world token. And whoever picks up the first token necessarily forces the other side to pick up the only token that blew.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
And he said, there are always 2 tokens and both tokens must be played every time. Now, clearly this guy, the waiter, picked up the not a big deal token, which forced us to pick up the end of the world token. Now imagine if he had instead said like, oh my God, there's glass in your food. That I cannot believe that. Thank God you're okay. But this is horrible. Like I need to run in the kitchen and just make sure we figure out where that came from, so no one else is bad next. But
Right? Do you need an ambulance?
I'm just like, gift cards, the meals on us, please come back. This is totally acceptable. At that point, it's like, what do you do? Like, if he literally says, I can't believe how horrible this is. I feel horrible. We totally failed you. The meals on us. We're giving you more gift cards for more free meals. Am I going to say, screw you? No.
No, I'm going to be like, all right, well, it's not that big of a deal. So it's so simple and it works every time and in business.
There's zero downside to taking the end of the world position, even if you don't know all the facts. And if you like later you realize that the other side is seriously a fault, you can always play the upon a further review card. When you do, a lot more credibility, because they'll know that you had the default response of taking accountability.
Right.
So what's important is that the accountable parties be held accountable, not I am right, you are wrong. And you build up that goodwill. I would also say this, that what I used to say to people in our company, right, even now, is that when you really screw something up for a client, that is an opportunity to make the relationship stronger and better. Because so many cultures honor flawless execution above all else, and mistake frowned upon and seen as bad as shame. And the problem with that is that we're humans, so no one's perfect.
So any culture that depends on flawless execution to succeed is inherently flawed, like they're going to fail. And
Quality execution is important and needs to be honored, but mistakes are inevitable, and a real true test of character is how we react once we recognize we've made a mistake. So there's a balance here. Some clients, when they realize that their vendor, let's say, has made a mistake, they're just going to explain and milk it for everything it's worth.
And frankly, those aren't good clients. Like, they're not in the long run, they're not profitable. And it's not worth it. So get rid of them. But most clients are people, and most people, they just want to be fair. They want to be treated fairly.
When a mistake is made and the person responsible for the mistake doesn't take accountability, the other side feels like an injustice has been perpetrated against them, and they want justice. So they get mad when they don't get it. And that's why they grab the end of the world token. It's like, wait, you're not taking responsibility for this? You don't realize how freaking horrible this is, what you've just done? And then things go bad to worse. So
I've never heard that sort of metaphor. And that was always my strategy, not because I'm a genius or I studied, but I saw it work, right? That if you go in overly apologetic, that they're going to play the other side. And so I love that metaphor and sort of validation.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews, and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
What's interesting, and you kind of started to go there about what you talk about on conflict, is you also say that conflict can drive growth and innovation. So I've never seen somebody sort of say, okay, there's this proactive positive. Can you tell us more about what you mean there?
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that. You cannot drive growth and innovation without conflict. It's possible. And then we can have a broad definition of conflict, but the companies where you have a bunch of yes men around, or like where no one is raising their hand when there's a problem, they do not. That will kill innovation. And that's just a slow death, and it takes a long time. The bigger the company, the lower the slide into death it is. But let's talk about careers. So people grow in their careers and they innovate, they get creative, and they grow, they get better. Well, no one's perfect. So people are going to screw up. They're going to make mistakes. And you've got to be able to address those mistakes with the person so that they realize it, so they have the opportunity to get better. And that's where you get the growth from. If they can grow in their careers, they're going to get better at their job. They're going to make their team members happier. They're going to make their client work happier, and everything gets better. And like going back to before, the people are just uncomfortable with it. Guilt is an amazingly powerful tool. And let me explain it, because I don't think we should go around guilting people. But I look at it like that. If I'm in a situation where I see someone that I'm somewhat responsible for, they report to me, or I'm a spirit, whatever it is, they're another human being, and I see them make a mistake. And repeatedly making a mistake. And I know exactly what they're doing wrong, and I know how to fix it. And I withhold that like amazingly valuable information from them, and I don't share it with them. I deprive them of the opportunity to be the best person they can possibly be. And out of this sense of kindness, like, well, I don't want to say this thing because it's going to make them feel uncomfortable and they'll feel bad. So now I've rationalized I'm a good person because I'm not putting them in a position where they feel bad, when the reality is I'm a horrible person because I'm depriving them of the opportunity to be the best version of them that they can be. That's me. That's like mean. It's flat out cruel to do to another person. So when I've talked to other leaders who haven't given feedback to people on their teams, and they think they're doing it out of being kind, I tell them, no, you're actually like being really, really cruel right now. And then they walk out of those conversations thinking, I'm a total jerk. And then they're eager. They're like, okay, you're right. I got to say something. How do I do it though? Because it's really hard. And then we can get into details of what you can say. And it's things like, if I were in your position, I want to be told this, or I think you're being perceived in a way that you don't want to be perceived. Or, and then you get specific, like when we were in that meeting and you rolled your eyes when Lisa said that thing, it looked like you just were totally dismissive of her and her ideas, or that you feel your time is more important. But I know that's not true. I know you're not a jerk. Everyone thinks that you are, but I want them to see you for like the great person that you are. And so don't roll your eyes the next time someone says something to annoy, and instead maybe say something supportive and constructive. The other piece is telling somebody what they've done wrong important, but you really need to give them something that they can take away of like how to fix it and be better. That's also really important.
Yeah. It makes me think of, probably it doesn't prove your point. So I shouldn't say this, but I'll just say one of my bosses, maybe not one of my favorite bosses, but I had just taken over the COO role under him, and he gave me sort of the reins to run a town hall. And, it was like, I found my glory, right? Somebody who now is a professional speaker, had sort of natural talent, right? Had been going to these town halls that are just snoozy and boring, right? I told stories, I shook it up, right? Like it was what I was born to do, right? And so we got done with my first town hall, and I remember thinking, like people were so engaged, and I freaking crushed it. And I remember him sending me an email, because I think he was just like watched virtually because he was in a different office. And he sandwiched it. He didn't, come right out. But, here I'm thinking, holy crap, I just, knocked it out of the park. And he told me some nice things about it. And he said, but you know what? You said I a lot. I think we should do this. And I have this, but, I was also ready to talk about my vision. And it stuck with me ever since, because he was absolutely right. It was not of course, ill-intended, and it wasn't, meant to be selfish, but it was, a very small but important thing where if he wouldn't have told me, I love that, he would have deprived me of being the best leader I could have been.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And it sounds like but you start by saying he wasn't maybe your favorite boss, but that sounds like a really good service he did for you.
He did. I mean, I think in the rubric of giving direct feedback, he sort of gets a 9 or 10. There's just other parts of the rubric.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
multifacets, right, to be a great leader. So, but okay, so we have to go here. I can't believe it's been almost 30 minutes. We haven't, but I love penguins. You love penguins. So you have a book called Don't Get Mad at Penguins. You also just recently released your TED Talk that highlights this metaphor, this penguin. Tell us why your book's called Don't Get Mad at Penguins.
Don't get mad at penguins because they can't fly.
Okay.
And that's really a lesson in acceptance, and that we should accept people, limitations and all. And here's the hard part: not expect them to do things that they're not capable of. And the thing that makes that such a challenge is that oftentimes it's just hard to see people's limitations, especially when everything else we know about them suggests that they're not limited. So take the penguin, for example. Like, what do you mean a penguin can't fly? It's a bird. It's got wings, got feathers, and birds with wings and feathers can fly. Except that penguins cannot. I mean, flight is literally beyond their ability, and we can get mad at them for that, or we can just accept it. I can't tell you how many times when I bring up the penguin analogy to people, and I bring it up in response to them telling me how somebody just always pisses them off or makes them feel anxious or whatever the negative thing is. And I basically tell them the version of they're not capable of not doing the thing that you don't want them to do or behaving the way that you want. And they would just respond, what are you talking about? Of course they're capable of it. They're like, you're saying that they can't see their own behavior? I mean, they're smart. I hear them analyze other people's behavior perfectly. Right. So if they have the ability to do that, then at least they have the ability to analyze. And my response is, no, they don't. That's not obvious. You got to get past that. And then usually it's sort of a journey into the conversation of, so you're saying they do this every single time you talk to them? Yes. So the next time you have a conversation with them, what do you think the likelihood is that they're going to do the same thing again? 100%. So, okay. So why would you get mad at it if you know 100% it's going to happen? Do you just getting mad? Do you want to create a situation again where you just get to be mad? And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychoanalyst, but the question becomes, what do you get out of being mad? And I think that's a loaded question. Look, I think some people do get something out of it. I don't unpack what happened to them as children, but the reality is that in these situations, they don't want to feel the way they're feeling, but they're trapped in this pattern. The penguin analogy is still great because it allows people to say, all right, there are things that people may not be capable of when all other indications suggest that they are. And especially when somebody is an aggressive personality or is cruel to them or mean to them, when they picture them as this cute little penguin, they told me the fact, like, I can tell you, and I come back and while they're yelling at me, I'm just picturing this little innocent penguin that can't even freaking fly, and I feel so bad for it. And it just deflates it takes all the hot air out of this, anger and this anxiety riddled scenario.
Which is funny because I think I told you this when we first met. Anytime I go to a zoo, I love the penguins. And the number one thing running through my head all the time is those poor freaking penguins. Not only can they not fly, but look how hard it looks to even walk, right? They rock and then they slide down things. So I love that. Think of people as penguins.
Hey guys, Erin here. Stop. Do not do it. Don't fast forward. I have something too important. I have a couple of very passive aggressive questions to ask you that you don't want to miss. Here they are. 1, do you find yourself often comparing yourself to others? They work harder than me. They get noticed more than me. They have better luck than me. They're smarter than me. Or do you also just feel exhausted from having to always work as hard, if not harder, than everybody else to stand out and succeed. I know you have these challenges. We all do. And this is why I wrote the 50% rule. And I know you need to read another book like you need a hole in the head. But I'm telling you, this book and this rule, I'm obsessed with it. And it has changed my life. It has changed the lives of others around us. And it has also been the formula for success behind so many successful people. Savannah Bananas, Hamilton, Weird Al Yankovic. The 50% rule is the simplest shortcut to stop comparing, stop copying, stop chasing other people, and like literally compete in your league of your own. There isn't a day that doesn't go by where I stop myself and I'm like, oh, she did a talk that I wish I could do. She's got more. No, it doesn't matter, because we don't compete in the same league. I compete in a league of my own because I am constantly 50% ruling things. So if you're interested in this concept, which by the way is more fun as a team sport, but at least start with yourself. You cannot miss this book. It's not only powerful, it's really freaking fun to read. That is always my number one goal. It was my number one goal with my first book. It's my number one goal with the 50% rule. I want to make it enjoyable to read it. Why? So that you read it. So if you feel like you are stuck with these comparison cramps or just all the symptoms that I talk about in the book of sleep running syndrome, self-doubt gout, and pioneer paralysis, and well, you have to read the book to find out more, then just go buy the darn book. Easiest way, go to Amazon, search the 50% rule, and I cannot wait to hear how you 50% rule things.
You talk about 5 traps that turn conflict against business everywhere. What I have to know, it's a listicle, 5 traps. You sucked us in. What are they?
So there are, and by the way, this isn't just in business. This is in all human interaction. There is the bully trap. I'll explain on each one. So there's the bully trap, need to win trap, a liar trap, the avoidance trap. That is the most common of all the traps, and the judgment trap. And when you dig in each one, it's important to understand these. Like we talk about toxic conversations, I dig in and look at what are these. If something is toxic, that means that there are toxins, and there are things that naturally occur in human interaction that are very healthy and optimal ranges. Things like anger, fear, ego, judgment. For me, I get mad, and that anger motivates me to fix things that are broken. You know, if I'm frustrated or something about it, I'm mad. That's what pushes me to get the energy to go fix it. If I hang on to that anger after it has served its purpose, well, now I'm moving into toxic territory. Same thing with fear. You know, at 2 a.m., the thing that tells you don't walk down that dark alley, that's healthy. That's good fear. But if you allow that same instinctive fear to drive negative behavior in interaction in business, then it becomes counterproductive. So, bully trap. This is not about bullies, like a playground bully who likes to bully people. That's not the bully trap. The bully trap is a scenario in which somebody, because of urgency or their own fear or passion, engage in bullying-like behavior where they're being perceived as a bully in someone else's eyes. So if someone on my team screws up and I'm pissed off and I'm mad and I just go yell at them because I'm angry, and I think I'm giving them feedback, well, I'm not. I'm just yelling and beating up on some. It's not a productive scenario. And if I have questions of the other person, like I want to understand why they did whatever they did, and I can't yell at them like, hey, you screwed up. How did you do this? Why don't you do that? They're just going to defend. Like then there's not going to be a genuine conversation. That's a trap. So that's why you want to detox that bully trap and get in there and take a different approach. And we have talked about approach this, but then there's the need to win trap. That is when our need to win some small battle eclipses the reason we embarked on that battle in the first place. So
I have in my book, I told a great story of how I was in this lawsuit and it was basically had done a really good job and got to the point where we were on the eve of trial. And I'm in chambers with the judge. And the judge, she was a great judge, and she held a settlement conference before we started picking a jury, just so people could settle the case. And I'll spare you all the details, but I had found like a smoking gun piece of evidence that was going to destroy the other side. Like a witness on the stand, be confronted with it. It would have been like this awesome moment in my career. And I was going to like, I would win the trial and I couldn't wait. And I shared it with the judge because the judge opens up with me. He's like, the weak kid, like, you just sell this. And I said, Judge, I'm going to show you something, but the other side doesn't know it. And I show her. And then she brings the other attorney back in the room and basically leaned on the lawyer and pulls a settlement offer out of this lawyer. It was like 10 times more than what they were offered before. And I just, I'll relay this off from my client as I'm required to do. It's not enough money. And then the judge tells the lawyer, he said, can you use this for a second? And then we're alone again. And she goes, what the hell are you doing? I said, I can win this case. Like, I can show everyone what liar's there. I can prove this and just, I can win. And she's like, that's not your job. Your job is to get the best result you can for your client. And I'm telling you, you just done it. If you're going to go ahead and gamble all this at trial, like, that's very irresponsible. And I didn't do the story enough justice because it's a great story. But the idea here is I was so focused on winning. And I was so pissed at them for stonewalling me. And this is after a year and a half of just dealing with this, these massive law firms throw everything they can, burying the paper. And I wanted blood. And once I had the power to really hurt them, I couldn't see beyond it. And the reality is the only reason I got into that fight in the first place was to get relief for my client. Need to win trap. Yeah.
I think we all can relate to that, right? Maybe not in a trial, but we certainly can in our relationships at home, at work. I think you said something about detoxing, and I don't want to spend all your time to go through all of them. People can hopefully buy your book. Don't get mad at penguins. But let's talk the bully trap. I think if every episode we had the word bully in it, we'd probably be, twice the size podcast because, everybody was work bullies. How do you detox the bully trap? And as you said, your definition of bully is different than maybe how our listeners might think of, a colleague bullying. But let's just talk about detoxing and how do you detox that situation of the bully trap as an example?
I love using what I call the shopping list voice. I'll just run you through this scenario. Let's say I'm on the phone with a client who is firing us. Like they're terminating their agreement with my company because someone on my team screwed up. And I'm pissed off. So I slam the phone down and I walk over to this person in front of everybody. And I'm like, I just got the bull of the client. And you said deliverables was a stage in them. They had to redo your work. They missed the deadline. And that's the first time it happened. They fired us. That's a $2 million account we lost because you can't do your fucking job and get your head out of your ass. Scene. That's one way to handle it. But that's not giving feedback. That's just me beating up on something. And that's just me being basically an asshole. And so shopping list voice, let's say you say to me, hey, Gabe, I'm going to the store. You want me to pick anything? And I say, yeah, I want to make a cake. So can you pick up eggs, milk, frosting, and sprinkles? Matter of fact, you get it, shopping list voice. So take the same scenario. I just got off the phone with the client. They sent deliverables with mistake and they had to redo your work and they missed the deadline as a result. They also said this isn't the first time that's happened and they have fired us. That's a $2 million account we just lost. Scene. So the substance of what is communicated in both scenarios is identical. But in the first example, the person probably stopped listening to me 2 seconds into the tirade. In fact, neurologically, there were probably things going on in their brain that literally prevented them from processing the message. And they actually don't even hear what I'm saying. And in the second scenario, they didn't like what I'm saying, but at least they heard every word. And it is important to give feedback like that right away.
in real time if possible.
And then, so that shopping list voice is such it's an easy to remember tool, and it's easy to use, and it's like crazy effective.
Yeah. And I would say if you're really mad, you should practice first, because if you can't practice in the shopping list voice, you're not ready for the real thing. But you can get there pretty quickly. And the other thing to keep in mind is when people screw up, it's always an opportunity. So I would plan on delivering the critical feedback in a shopping list voice, but then also use it as an opportunity to reaffirm the person. And then after you say, we just lost this $2 million account, you can say, but my hope for you, like, let's not sugarcoat it, right? This is horrible, but you're not horrible. You're a smart, very capable person. And my hope for you is that this incident becomes a turnaround point in your career. And that if it's months or a year from now, people look back on this and they say, wow, they really screwed that up. But ever since then, they've been delivering high quality work with a great attitude on time. And I look forward to working with them myself on a project. And that's a guaranteed way to overcome the bully trap, where you're not perceived as a bully in someone else's eyes.
That's so great.
It's kind of a 1-2 punch. It's one, chopping his voice. 2, make sure you're going to reaffirm at the end. Because if you know that you're going to reaffirm the person afterwards, it makes it easier to hold that dispassionate, matter-of-fact tone of voice.
Right. Because otherwise transitioning from one to the other just feels very awkward and tenuous and impossible.
It is awkward.
It's awkward. So I just have our two final questions we ask everyone. The first is the book that story. So we always ask our listeners, we're all about authenticity, about doing things differently, about bucking the norm. Do you have a time when you sort of bucked that and things turned out really well? You sort of went against conventional wisdom.
Yeah, it was, I'm going to tell you a story of another mistake I made that then fixed. So I had just transitioned from being a litigator into a startup, and litigation attorneys, they swear at each other all the time, and it's no one's offended.
Right.
And there was a guy a sales guy who, by the way, to this day, is still one of the best salespeople I've ever encountered. He screwed something up, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was dealing with the repercussions of his screw up, and I was pissed off. So I sent him an email, and the subject line of the email was, "What the fuck?" And the email itself said, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Is it that," I said, you have no idea how your mistakes can impact other people, or is that you do have an idea and you just don't care? I don't know which one's worse. Like, I really laid into this guy hard. And I openly copied a friend of mine who was a lawyer who brought me into this company. And I thought, I'll copy him and show him how I'm managing this situation. And it was at 10 o'clock at night. And all credit to the guy I sent the email to. He immediately responded and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Can we please talk about this first thing in the morning? I feel horrible. I want to address this with you." So next morning, I walk into the office and I see the guy that I CC'd on the email. And I said, "Hey, did you see the email I sent last night?" And he said, "Yeah, you can't do that." And I immediately said, "Oh, really? What the hell's wrong with you?" Like, I start going over the time. And he said, "You don't understand. These people here, they're not lawyers. They're real human beings. And they feeling, and they have, and it was, oh, wow. Okay. So I guess I can't be that. That is very, very effective in the world that I came from. It's not effective here at all." So the thing that I bucked was that so many people, we all know it's wrong, but so many people every day do it all day, is they avoid the difficult conversation, where they're really upset and somebody does something that causes them pain and they don't address it. So they're going to cause them pain again. And for me, I just made the commitment of, I'm never going to allow myself to carry anger with me, in frustration with me in a work environment or personally either. And it was, anytime somebody does something that I feel is disrespectful of me or my time, I'm going to assume, number one, they don't realize it, and that they're not doing it intentionally, they're not mean-spirited. So that's a big assumption. And 2, I'm going to I'm going to make them aware of it right away so that they know. And if they ever do it again, I get to say, all right, this second time this has happened, the first time you didn't know, this time you knew.
Now I'm taking it personally.
So the bucking the trend was to never allow something to go unvetted or unchecked,
And not doing it the way that litigators do it, doing it the way that real human beings do it.
Right. I love it. Yeah. I mean, kudos to you. You were in a sort of a fake world, but it was your first career. So you didn't know that you were living in, or maybe not a fake world, just an alternate universe.
And worse, it was fun. Like I genuinely enjoyed that just cutthroat world. I didn't even realize how cutthroat it was until I left it.
Sure.
In fact, I remember the realization came to me when I thought about this after the fact. I was in court, and I got into court early in the morning. I had some motion I was arguing against the other side. And I remember it was snowy outside, and I had was people trudging snow in the courthouse hallway. And at the far end of the hallway, it's like 8 a.m, and I see my opponent, and he's got, his nose is red, and his eyes look a little watery. Like he had a cold, and he was like stuffy. And the first thought that entered my mind is, oh, I'm going to destroy this guy. Like he has a cold. There is no way he can compete. Like if I were stuffy and I had to deal with that, like that's the only edge I need. I'm going to eviscerate this person in court. And I was so happy. And then I was telling someone that in the startup world, and it's actually real weird to like have that instinctive feeling. And it's a little ugly. Like, again, it was fun, but the giddiness I felt over somebody else's misery, and then the desire to use their misery against them and make them feel even more pain was just a weird thing.
It sounds like litigation attorneys and probably like the NFL are have similar mindsets, but probably don't need to have that same mindset else. So before I ask you the last question, which is an easy one, I promise, where can people learn more from you, find you, interact with you?
GabeKarp.com, GABEKARP. And also check out the TED How to Fry with Difficult People. It's only 8 minutes. Who doesn't have 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Or buy my book, Don't Get Mad at Penguins.
Love it.
But if you Google Don't Get Mad at Penguins, and there's an audiobook that I narrated. So if you're an audiobook person, you can do that one.
Love it. Love it. All right. Final question. What is your one final tip to make work suck less for our listeners?
I would say the things that bother you at work, draw like a circle 350 degrees around you. And anyone that enters into that circle is just going to have to adhere to whatever higher standard you're going to hold yourself to. That means that when people fall short of that standard, you're going to very, very respectfully give them the gift of the awareness of how they've made a mistake. This sounds so corny, but you're actually going to make the world a better place, because what you do is, number one, you're going to make your professional life easier because you're going to deal with this stuff less, because people will realize, oh, when I'm dealing with so-and-so, I got to make sure I'm not disrespectful of their time. I pay attention to detail, whatever it is you need them to do. Number one, but number two, develop a really good skill in expressing the difficult concepts that people need to hear. Like, we avoid all that, and it always makes things worse. And if you make the commitment that you're going to hold people to that standard, you're going to have to say something, and then you just figure out how to say things more respectfully and in a way where they can hear it.
Yeah.
And if you view it as what you're giving them as a gift, even telling, like, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but if you're a speaker, so let's say I'm talking to you right before you're about to walk out on stage, and I see that you have like spinach in your teeth, and I don't tell you that before you walk out there, what kind of person am I?
Yeah.
That's mean. So when somebody, is screwing up at work, that's the work version of having food in their teeth. Like, tell people it's a gift. So that's my one thing.
I love it. Well, this has been great. It's so good getting your tips. And like I said at the beginning, conflict is is a hot topic with our audience. So thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. And we see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.